Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. You know, today we're going to talk about the importance of living in the moment. We're also going to talk about going fast, how to go fast in our business, how to go fast in life, live life to the fullest. And we're going to spend some time discussing how we're not going to live our life in the past anymore. Don't worry about the past so much. Forget speculating on what the future could bring, but take advantage of the present. And we're going to be talking about an amazing individual who was not only a brilliant father, entrepreneur, and race car driver. We're going to be discussing the life of Rusty Cummings, who recently passed away. And his family is here. His children are here, Dana, Hayes, and Kyle Cummings. And we're going to be discussing his life as well as a new book out. And we're going to also talk about giving back to the community. So don't go anywhere. This is a very important episode you're not going to want to miss. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back. You know, we've been getting a lot of emails coming into the site about how do we become a part of the guest audience? How can we be a part of the guest audience? And if we wanted to, we just opened that up a few weeks back. So if you want to become a part of our live studio audience, just go to tuesdayswithdan.com, and there's a button on there that says be a part of the live studio audience, and you can find out who the guests are going to be. And it is first come, first served, but we just opened that up. We wanted to make you aware of it. Also, you know, the purpose of this show is not only to have amazing guests like we have here tonight, but we want to also talk to local business entrepreneurs, people that have amazing stories. So if you have an amazing story, you know somebody that has an amazing life story, an amazing thing they've accomplished, please write us or contact us at tuesdayswithdan.com. And we'd love to have you on the show. Our show tonight, I'm really jazzed about. We're going to be talking with Dana Hayes and Kyle Cummings, the children of Rusty Cummings. Many of us know Rusty as a very dynamic, fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants race car driver, but he was obviously much more than that, and we're going to be speaking today with Dana and Kyle. Please give them a big hand. Pleasure. We're going to get it right this time. Okay. Well, you guys look amazing. I've been getting a lot of comments from the crew saying, is she married? Is he married? So your parents, one, kudos to your dad right there. Your parents did something right. Good-looking family. And I know that a lot of people know your father about his race car driving. But tell us a little bit about him behind the scenes. What was he like growing up with? What was he like as a regular daddy? He was definitely a wonderful father, and he's the kind of person, if you saw him in a room, you would want to know who he was. You would want to go up to him, and not just would you want to, he wanted to know about people. With all the entrepreneurs now take classes to learn how to remember somebody's name, how to remember a specific person, a specific thing about people, to draw them into them. He just did that naturally. And naturally in what he did every day, he talked to people, he was invested in people's lives. And unbelievable. So instead of like, let me take this class so I can remember people's names so I can get more business, his really motive was like, I'm truly interested in people, and I just really want to get to know people. He didn't do knowing what he was doing, it was just who he naturally was. Not to promote himself, but in the process he did that. And you mentioned a certain charisma, I guess. There's a lot of people that, you know, when somebody walks into a room, you just say, he's probably in charge, or she's probably the most interesting that I want to go talk to. And I mentioned to you this earlier, I had a privilege to spend a day with Donald Trump a while back, and, you know, he's not maybe the most, you know, dynamic looking person or whatever, but there was something about him that when he comes into the room, he's a very charismatic person. And it seems like your father had that as well. Right, if he didn't know what was going on in the room when he come in, it wasn't going to be long before he everybody But I know that without your knowledge, he actually started writing a book. Is that right? Right. And what really inspired him to do that, do you know? I think it was he saw it on a TV show that somewhere everyone had a good book in them. Yeah. Just another one of those inspirational shows. I think he watched
because my mom was watching, and he saw someone in there said everybody's got a great novel in them, and then he said I just took the time to write mine down. So
right. So I know he was like writing it secretly, like on
notebooks
and stuff. And did any of the family have any idea that he was doing all of this?
No idea.
Not at the beginning. I mean, he was an oil field worker, so when he would go back and forth checking oil wells, he had a little bit of time on location. So
Yeah.
he would sit down, and that's when he would start writing.
Well,
it down.
we were speaking earlier backstage, and really, he was a really interesting guy because not only was he an oil field worker, a race car driver, but he was a bail bondsman. Isn't that right? And that's a pretty interesting line of work in itself.
Well, it all started out kind of as a joke once he started doing it, because my mom worked for the sheriff's department.
Oh, I see.
And my dad was a bail bondsman, so they all said she put him in and he got him out.
But
that's a great working relationship.
that was another way for him to meet people too. It grew, grew his business in that arena, and that helped him continue to race and everything. He would always let people, okay, you can pay me out. He even the people that he bonded out looked up to him and looked to him for guidance. And,
yes.
And he was well respected in everything that he did.
How old were you? I presume both of you drove with him, but when he says, "Come on, kids, you're gonna get in the car," I mean, do you remember being in the car with your dad at a young age while he's hammering it around the track, or?
Oh, I can remember. That's been my whole life, has been around a racetrack. I was every weekend during the summer. That's where I was. I was at a racetrack.
Yeah, and we spoke earlier. He said that not only were you, in the car as a passenger, but from a very young age, he was saying, okay, you're not going to just learn how to drive. You're actually speeding around the track. Was it 14?
14 was when I started racing.
Wow.
And there were times they raced each other.
Oh, yeah. We got pretty competitive towards one another.
Yeah. He seemed like, from what we've seen just in the book, he seemed like a very competitive.
Oh, he pushed me. He pushed me to be the driver that I am now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ways that he raced, that's the way I see my way driving, and the ways that I win my races now is the same ways that he did.
Yeah. And just to mention it to the audience, you're really following in your dad's footsteps. I know that you've been racing for how long?
Well, I'm 29 years old, and I started when I was 14.
Yeah, so you've been out there.
I was driving a race car before I had my own driver's license.
Oh, well, we won't edit that part. But now, tell us a little about this book. I have a copy of it here, 4 Million Summers, and I'm sure by now you've gone through the manuscripts. And, we have a mutual friend. I know that Margot Bush, the publisher who published this book, I've been affiliated with her for a long time. She's a dear friend. And I remember when she originally reached out, and they were in the process of kind of getting the book together and everything, and your father was still alive. And so this was a long thing in the making. But he did finish it. It's called 4 Million Summers. And tell us a little bit about the book. I know it's a love story, right?
It is. It's a love story that's kind of a coming of age. It starts when he was younger, and actually a lot of it's based on true events. The main character in the novel is him.
Oh, wow.
And so you learn so much about him just from the first few pages on who he was, and there's so much of him in it. The actual story is completely fiction, but there are people in the beginning. I think any age group can pick it up and relate to it in some manner. It doesn't matter if you're from the country or the city. It's all about how you relate to your friends, to teenagers, how you move forward, and how you promote yourself. And he becomes, very wealthy and very successful in the book. And it's all about how you are with people. And it all comes back to love story, but it's one that men, women, children, anybody would love. It's not one that a 14-year-old girl could pick it up and read and enjoy it. A male, anybody, it relates to all.
Although I didn't have the privilege to meet your father, I know that just from looking through the book, you really get a sense of his personality. His voice really comes through in the book. We're going to take a quick break, and I want to hear more about the book and more about your father when we return. 4 Million Summers. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back. We've been discussing 4 Million Summers by Rust Cummings, and we're here with the lovely children, Dana and Kyle. Now, we were talking about, when we were going through the book earlier today, some of our staff even said, I've read the book, and I can't believe this was written by a man. I don't know what they meant by that, what's wrong with men, but they said that it was so endearing and so it was from this place. They said, I can't believe a man wrote this. The first time that you guys found the manuscripts, how was it like? Were you guys picking up saying, oh, what is Dad? I can't, what is he doing?
Oh, yeah. You just can't, and not only that, he had no college education. He was a race car driver, an oil field worker. I think a lot of it, just anybody can do anything.
Yeah.
Like, it shows you anybody can do anything they set their mind to if you try hard enough. It's in you, you can do it, and he did, and you read it. He was a very endearing person, so you see that in the pages, and everything that he did, I think we were definitely envied, I think, as children.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can remember the day that they told me, which of course is, I was the last one to know, but you start reading into it, and before I even read it, I was, Dad, you didn't write a book.
Yeah.
And then you start reading, and you're like, he did write a book, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good. Actually, I've actually gotten into the first 3 chapters, and a lot of times if we have a guest with a book, I'll glance through it and I'll read it. But this, I'm already into it now enough where I'm like, all right, I got to find out what happens. You know what I mean? It's really compelling. And again, I think so many times in a book, through editing or through whatever, the author's voice can get lost. And it might be great content, but you don't really learn anything about the author. And I think what a great service this was his voice really comes through it. You get to know him and what he was like through this book. You can almost say how it sound, how he would sound delivering the book.
Yeah, and it's got the sports in it, some sports, and that tells the tale of him. How much he loved and enjoyed sports as a younger person.
Yes.
From my perspective, it lets me know the time frame that my parents came from. When there wasn't TVs, there wasn't cell phones. There was TVs, but not cell phones.
Sure.
And everything else. And it was about good friends and relationships and
creating
hard work,
your own fun and working hard and having that sense of accomplishment.
Right.
Yeah, it's a different generation today for sure. Now, we mentioned too that your father did pass away very young, and my condolences. I know what that's like. My father passed away recently as well, and that's something you're never really prepared for, is the loss of a parent. But while he was writing this book, I know that it got down to finishing like the final chapter. He was actually signing off on the last part, and basically that was it. I mean, he passed away. It was almost like he felt, I did it. I've accomplished everything I set it to accomplish. Now it's okay.
And he initially didn't tell everybody, just the close family members knew that he even wrote the novel. And then once he was diagnosed, you realize you've got to put those insecurities behind you. You're going to fail or you're going to succeed, and you can't worry about it. You've got to put everything on the line, and he did.
Right.
He did after he was diagnosed. He immediately told his siblings, he immediately started telling other people in the family, and then everybody. And that's how we were, how we found Margot, how we started into the publishing. He tried to quietly do it, just me and him by himself, and email people, and if he had just put himself out there in the beginning. But he did, and was his last bit. I think this is what his legacy that he left for ALS, people living with ALS, the way to bring it out to the community and to let other people realize what Lou Gehrig's disease is.
We actually have a clip here from your dad and a lot of his life I wanted to show. Here's a little bit with Rusty Cummings.
That fist pump and the arms in the air that tell many on the dirt track circuit.
As this is his old motor.
And family members remember Rusty Cummings after most races.
He taught me how to race, he taught me how to fish, hunt.
Rusty practically raised his son Kyle at the racetrack and in their garage, tinkering and beating out dents and side panels.
There was a lot of late nights spending in this shop right here between me and my dad.
Ask his son.
He once said that he had heard somewhere that everyone had a great novel in them.
Or his daughter Dana. They'd say their dad lived a life worthy of a novel.
5 years ago, my dad entrusted me with the revelation that he had begun writing a novel.
But who would think he would write one?
He didn't tell anybody at first.
Mr. 6'4", rough and tough, oil-filled working race car driver surprised all a few years back.
It was all handwritten in notebooks.
He wrote a book.
And I thought, okay, he wrote a book.
I mean, I can remember getting a smile on my face thinking, there's no way my dad wrote a book.
And then you start reading it, and you're like, oh my gosh, like he wrote a book.
I thought he was joking at first.
Wife Brenda was the first person he slipped his secret to.
I think I got the first 4 chapters or something like that, and I read it, and I was amazed.
It wasn't the story of his life, but a boy meets girl love story of sorts, with all sorts of personal inspirations and local mentions from Giblin's ballpark to Bossier City's Kokomo's drive-in.
We were amazed, and we encouraged him to finish it. And
For the man who spent a lifetime finishing strong, he did. Soft, tender, 26-chapter fictional love story. But then came a chapter he never envisioned, never wrote, family members never expected for a million summers.
That's probably one of the worst days, because all I can remember him saying is, oh God, no. Persistent
back pain led Rusty to doctor after doctor, until one doctor wrote the next line in Rusty's personal story: amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS.
ALS may have stolen him from us much too soon, but in his short life, Rusty Cummings lived greater than most.
4 short months later, Rusty lost his race against a disease with no known cure.
Years ago, when Lou Gehrig, gave his name to this disease, we're really no further than we were then.
The last few months of his life, this is what me and him would do. We had a chair out here. He'd come out here and sit in the chair, and he'd watch me work on it.
Rusty would still keep watch over the garage and over his book as family members edited the final revisions. On September 9th of last year, Rusty signed off on the final draft for the publisher.
Losing him, and every day, we seem to miss him a little bit more.
Just hours before passing on.
My daddy's final prayer: God, I know you can still perform miracles and heal all things, but I think this disease has taken me too far, and when you're ready for me, I'm ready.
Against all odds, and against a debilitating disease,
it's his legacy. It's what he left for us to be able to do something with.
Rusty Cummings finished his final race for a million summers.
We appreciate you guys really bringing some attention to the disease. I think the book's amazing. 4 Million Summers, available now on Amazon and local bookstores. Pick it up. We'll be right back with Michelle Savage. Don't go anywhere. Thank you. Welcome back. My next guest is Michelle Savage. Michelle is the development director for the chapter of ALS in Alabama. Give a warm welcome to Michelle Savage. Nice meeting you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Now, Michelle, we've been discussing ALS, and I'm currently learning as much as I can about it now. And it's from what we understand, it's still a pretty rare thing to be diagnosed with. We were talking, obviously, to we've been talking a lot about Rusty Cummings, and of course, Dana and Kyle. We've been discussing probably when somebody gets ALS. You've probably gone every other avenue by that time. You've checked for this and checked for this, and then by elimination, you kind of come up with, maybe let's check for ALS.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we still find today.
Yeah.
I think Dana said earlier, from the time when Lou Gehrig was diagnosed and put the name on the disease to where we are today, there's still so much that we don't know about it. And it is a diagnosis when everything else has been eliminated. They come to realize that through all of this, yes, those symptoms do match up, and you have ALS, and it's the death sentence for the patient.
Yeah, and many people today, they might not even know who Lou Gehrig is, but there is several people now that are bringing more awareness to it. The current people in the limelight, so to speak, that have it and are speaking out.
Well, and they're finding more and more ties with concussions and sports-related injuries. So there's 2 now pretty big football players. Kevin Turner was an Alabama football player, and Steve Gleason, that was with the New England Saints, the New Orleans team.
New Orleans.
But anyway,
Saints,
so he's big in the New Orleans limelight now, and really bringing some good publicity in the football realm. So hopefully with more recognition, then more people will learn about it, and it's all good for us to get the awareness out there about ALS.
Yeah, and how does the ALS Association, how do they really help patients and families that have ALS? What can you do for them?
Well, we like to think we cover ALS across all the bases. So we help with the families once the diagnosis is received. Then we come in and we can help build ramps. We can help with bathroom modifications, provide equipment, the equipment that they'll need to communicate as the disease progresses. A lot of people lose the ability to speak. And then we help with research, we help with advocacy in Washington, working with our state legislators. So we truly try to cover it from all the bases.
So you also are stuck with getting through all the red tape and government?
All the red tape,
okay,
yeah.
So you have a tough job.
Yeah.
And is there anything we can do? I know we spoke earlier, and it's just kind of random. I mean, maybe there's now a few links of it possibly could be connected to this or that, but for the most part, it's like out of the blue, anybody can get it. We're not sure if it's hereditary, but it can just strike anybody.
Well, they have found there are some wonderful research projects happening now. There's two actually in the state of Alabama that we're real excited about, one at Hudson Alpha, and then there's a stem cell project happening here in Gulf Shores. So I love what you say about keeping it local, because if you can get involved in your local community, we hope that there's a Walk to Defeat ALS is the national signature event for our association, or go do something to raise some money, or
well, I was going to ask, like,
if
there's viewers out there now that say, you know what, I don't know much about it, but I've lost loved ones, and I know what the families are going through, and I want to get involved.
Yeah.
What can we really do? What are some of the things that some of our viewers can take action?
We would love, I mean, if people want to volunteer, we have volunteers that come in and help families kind of with that circle of care. So if people want to volunteer their time, or financial support is always very well appreciated. We have one of our favorite programs that we help with at our chapter is the respite program, where we can give those family members a break, let them go see a movie, or let them go out to dinner, or go grocery shopping, and we'll provide a skilled nurse to come into the home and take care of the patient. So they get a break. As being a caregiver, they can kind of recharge their batteries and be there to take care of the loved one.
Right.
So,
and give us a website too, that if we want to.
ALSalabama.org is our website, or they can just go to alsa.org and support the chapter that's in their area. So.
Okay. And I've been working on this all day, but I still just can't commit it to memory. But ALS, most of us know it as Lou Gehrig's disease. But what does it actually stand for?
It's amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
Okay.
So we say ALS
because
it's a tongue tie.
Yeah, it is. And really, what's the average lifespan of somebody that contacts us? What's the average lifespan? I know they said that once they found out their father was actually diagnosed, they had about 4.5 months.
Right, and that must have been a quickly progressing disease, because what we see nationally is 2 to 5 years from the time they get that diagnosis until they pass away. But for some patients, they might have been having symptoms for a year or 2 years, but it takes so long to get that final diagnosis that they then only have months to live. So.
And I wanted to ask you real quick, I know we got like 30 seconds, but I was going to ask you, there's a new movie out that's causing a lot of controversy in the ALS community, Ted with Mark Wahlberg, which I'm a Mark Wahlberg fan. I think he's an amazing actor. But there's a line in the new movie where they actually say something pretty derogatory about ALS.
Right.
I hope you die of ALS or something like that. And I know that he didn't write the movie. I know the writers just put it in there kind of as a punchline. But there is a lot of controversy right now, and from what I've been reading, it almost became a good thing because the movie has been so popular. It's bringing awareness.
Right. At least it's getting, from our opinion, ALS could never be perceived as a punchline, in my personal opinion. But at least it's getting people talking about it, and it's getting the movie world talking about it, and people are seeing that, and they have a reaction to it, whether good or bad, if they think it's funny or not. It's getting us talking about it. So, we're happy that it's shedding some light on the disease and getting awareness out there.
Well, thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you.
I wanted to, again, the book is For a Million Summers by Rust Cummings. And we want to say thank you to Michelle Savage here, as well as the children, Dana and Kyle Cummings. Thank you very much. We're out of time. Don't forget to get involved in your local community and be forgiving of others. Good night, everybody.